The penultimate episode for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has dawned upon us. It is called The Return, and here I am to review it. Before I mention anything else that is very substantial about the episode, I just want to mention one thing and one thing only. Coulson killing Ivanov, or at least fake Ivanov with the shield, was what, in my opinion, the highlight moment of the entire. It was the oh shit moment for me throughout the entire episode. That was not based on a story plot device or anything like that. Like when it comes to hand-to-hand combat or like a badass visual or something like that, it was Coulson taking just the face. It reminded me, it was like the most censored yet badass version of a fatality that I've seen in a while on a TV show or in a movie. I just wanted to mention that, get out of the way before I forgot it, because I feel like if I dived into the plot for this episode too much, I was going to forget about it, so I just wanted to mention it really quick in passing. Okay, that's out of the way, cool. Now let's tackle what this episode was all about, which is our characters finally jumping out of the framework and back into the real world. And for the first 15 or 20 minutes, we mainly played catch-up, whether it be Coulson and May being stuck in that room at the bottom of the sea through the oil rig. It was literally them catching up. Coulson telling May what she has missed this entire time, because you gotta keep in mind that she was pretty much incapacitated for the entire LMD story arc, so the last thing she remembers, as she put it in this episode, was the whole Robbie Reyes thing. So it just kind of comes full circle, especially with that stinger at the end. It all comes back full circle for May, so her being there in the real world and waking up with Coulson out of all people was kind of like the show's way of kind of catching up with our characters and finally taking a breather. And for the most part, I thought it was going to be that kind of episode. It was going to be like that characters moving from point A to point B episode, but then it quickly proved me wrong, because about 15-20 minutes or so, they break out of the room, they fight off all those Ivanov clones, and we find ourselves kind of reunited with Sky and Daisy, who they themselves, amongst the Zephyr, along with the other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, were also having their moments of catch-up while trying to fix the Zephyr and making sure that they don't get their asses killed. They are playing catch-up, trying to figure out who is where and how is everything going to move from here on out. And the other thing we catch up on is Fitz and Ada/Ophelia, who is now partly inhuman. She's not just human. She made what could be considered the sensible thing to do as a villain, which is to, hey, instead of just making myself human and be very easy to kill, I kind of have the Darkhold here. It teaches me how to put in the inhuman DNA, which is the whole reasoning behind Inhumans being grabbed and captured and kind of extrapolated, whatever, in the framework. That was the whole reason behind that, to make herself partly inhuman. And she's like I said, I really wasn't exaggerating last week, where she kind of reminded me of Deadpool a little bit with her teleporting powers. She created a pool of powers from all the Inhumans that we have as audience members, as well as the agents inside of the show themselves, have encountered. There's even a callback to Gordon, which is the whole thing where the teleporting powers kind of came from. That was interesting, and I love that this, I mean, we've seen it done before, but this episode also showcased how the writers are humongous nerds. They're humongous nerds that know what they're doing. They know how to treat these characters right, because they know how to use these characters in an effective way, even when they're the villains. Because here, Ophelia/Ada, she's a completely different type of character that we're used to. She was almost like a combination of both the good Ada from the very beginning of season 4, as well as Ophelia from the framework, mixed in together to bring about an even much more complex character who, oh my god. Even though I hated the character Ada and I had my issues with Ophelia, again, it was the characters, but that's because when I had their issues, it was the issues that rose from them being villains, because they were such hateable villains. But that's just a testament to the acting of Mallory Jensen, who shined really bright in this episode, especially with her breakdown there towards the end of the episode. Her complexities of realizing human emotion and all that being brand new to her, just made me feel like, okay, maybe for a split second, especially when her and Fitz are having that conversation on the island, I was like, maybe she was onto something this entire time as a villain. Like, I hated her gestures, her facial expressions, walking around like this. Like I said, she was teetering on a Resident Evil villain. But now, coming full circle to her being a human and actually being able to emote and bring some kind of gravitas to her character, I understand a little bit better. which is why I'm not a huge fan of her staying a villain by the end of this episode, because I thought it was really cool and effective to have her be the one to save Mac from the oil rig. Her saving Mac and performing that deed and bringing Fitz back was a really cool moment that actually made me kind of root for the villain. This character was a villain throughout the majority of season 4, at least for the latter 2/3, and here she is performing an awesome thing that I was actually kind of cheering for, mainly because it involves a Mac, a fan favorite. But here I am looking at her smile and I'm like, I don't know why, but I just feel like maybe you deserve this. And then we're quickly reminded why she maybe shouldn't be. Upon realizing that Fitz's love for Sims cannot be destroyed no matter whatever type of virtual reality you put around him, Ophelia/Ada kind of goes single white female on him, and she just raises out. And I don't like this because she's staying a villain. I was hoping that she would be a much more complex character than that, and maybe Ivanov could have been the main villain. But I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. That's the important part here, is I understand her emotion. I understand that it's all rushing in. And then maybe by the next episode, I'll understand it even more, to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe that's a good tie-in. For now, all we know is that Ophelia kind of goes back to Ivanov by the end of the episode with that scene that was rather heated, but at the same time rather funny, that she ends up destroying him because that's not what she was looking for. She wasn't looking for sex. She was looking for... So I thought it was kind of... I don't know, I just thought it was a really fun deviation where I'm like, okay, here, they're gonna sleep together so that she can realize how sex actually feels, but she ended up just breaking him down. I'm like, okay, that was a fun little twist on that whole thing that it usually plays out. And then you have Ivanov showing up again, because the real Ivanov Prime is still hidden away somewhere. We still got all these decoys walking around. Again, another sensible thing for the villain to do. So I love that they use these characters right, and I love that Fitz is not going to be able to fix this 100%. One of the shots that really spoke out to me in terms of Fitz being one of the more complex characters that have taken a toll throughout season 4, and the actor Ian Dickett, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but he is a genuine powerhouse. And no other scene showcased this more than the scene where he's just sitting with his head hung low inside of that containment. And you have several members of the agent's team just walking by him, giving him that look, but Sims is the one to stop and actually go in there and console him. No dialogue, nothing. They just break down together, and that was a very powerful moment, and a really good moment for Ian, the actor, to showcase how good he is of an actor. And I just gotta give a rousing applause to that performance, because it was actually that good. However, not every single character got that treatment where I can kind of understand where they're coming from. And this is where I kind of segue into probably the one thing that I genuinely didn't like about this episode, and not necessarily in a good way like I did with Ada, where she was a hateable villain, but that's because she's supposed to be the villain. Here, this might show a little bit of cracks within the writing or within the character development, and that is Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? Alright, this is somewhat of a dumb thing that you're doing. Please do not let me think that you just made a very stupid decision by not letting Mac go. First of all, at the very beginning, I thought she was choosing the worst moment to give Daisy B for not bringing Mac back. And I thought she was grilling her just a little bit too much, where I'm like, girl, back the fuck off, okay? And then later, she jumps back into the framework, which kind of proves my theory right, that we were not going to be seeing the last of the framework and not the last of Mac, because her jumping back in there is kind of confirming that, and his body still being used and moved from place to place, from the oil rig over to the tanker, kind of confirms that. What is interesting to note is the little stinger at the end where Yo-Yo wakes up and she's strapped to what looks like a death row type of thing, you know, when people get injected with a lethal injection. That kind of looks like it, either that or some kind of insane asylum that is put on fire. So that made me think, what exactly would Yo-Yo's biggest regret be? Now, I know that some eagle-eyed observers who are humongous fans of the show will probably go back to several episodes back and be like, okay, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, because ever so often she wouldn't mention things about her life, especially when she first got introduced way back before. But right now, I'm really curious to how that ties in with that visual of her being strapped to that thing inside of a burning building. And I love that they didn't linger on it too much. It was literally just that shot, cut to black, and I'm like, okay, that's good. That's good that you did that. But before that, we got the main thing to keep you tuned for the finale that I was generally not expecting. And that is, of course, my man, Robbie Reyes, returning as Ghost Rider, which I thought was really cool. If I had to nitpick just a little thing, it would be that I would have loved just a slightly grander build up, like slight spark, nothing. Another little spark, something flinches or whatever, and then suddenly it opens up instead of just opening up right away. But again, that's just me speaking as a filmmaker. Still, I was not expecting for them to actually show him in this episode. I think it was going to be saved up for the finale, and he's going to do much more there. That's when we're going to see him in action. But here, just a little tease, you got my blood boiling. I'll be honest, the excitement for this episode that ramped up towards its ending, that's gearing us up for the season 4 finale, was almost on par with that of last week's episode. And I will give it the same rating, but Yo-Yo was probably the only major fault in this episode that I just couldn't get behind, because I just felt like it was a very dumb move. So here's to hoping that she finds a way to kind of fix that mistake by jumping in and rescuing Mac and maybe herself. But her placement in the show, considering that she made this choice that could probably put herself and the rest of the team in jeopardy, could be met with her demise. Who knows? We can only theorize for now, as well as rate this episode, which is what I'll be doing, and I'll be giving The Return a solid 8 out of 10. I would give it a much higher rating if Yo-Yo hadn't made that, because I just can't get why Yo-Yo can't be a little bit understanding, because just being just a tad bit too stubborn, and I'm trying to understand it, but I'm having a lesser strain trying to understand Ada at this point than I am with her in just one episode. But that's just my personal take. Now let me know what your guys' is in the comments below. What are your theories going into the season 4 finale for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D? How do you think Ghost Rider is going to do? What do you think is going to happen with Yo-Yo inside of the framework? And what kind of theories can you provide as to what it is that her big regret was that was taken away, that led her into being in that situation back in the framework? And how is she going to be able to rescue Mech, if he could be rescued at all? Because who knows? I think these two are the characters that could be expendable for the season 4 finale to pack that emotional punch. So you guys got to get ready for that. Please let me know in the comments all of your guys' feedback, and make sure to support this video by giving it a like, a share, and of course subscribe to support my channel. And make sure to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at DarkSpiderDave. Until next time, guys, take care. I will see you all later.